Aloha mai kako, good morning. This is the December 3rd, 2020 Land Use Commission meeting, which is being held using interactive conference technology, linking video conference participants and other interested individuals of the public via the Zoom internet conferencing program. We're doing this, of course, to comply with state and county official operational directives during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Members of the public are viewing the meeting via the Zoom webinar platform. For all meeting participants, I would like to stress to everyone the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, and directly into your microphone. Before speaking, please state your name and identify yourself for the record. Also, please be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital record of the Zoom meeting. Your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the public record for this event. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. This Zoom conferencing technology allows the parties and each participating commissioner individual remote access to the meeting proceedings via our own personal digital devices. Also, please note that due to matters entirely outside of our control, occasional disruptions to connectivity may occur for one or more members of the meeting at any given time. If such disruptions occur, please let us know, and please be patient with us as we try to restore audiovisual signals to effectively conduct business during the pandemic. My name is Jonathan Likeke Scheuer. I currently have the honor of serving as the chair of the Land Use Commission. Along with me, Commissioners Edmund Axon, Don Chang, Gary Okuda, Arnold Wong, our LUC Executive Officer Daniel Ordenker, our Chief Planner Scott Derrickson, our Chief Clerk Riley Hakoda, and our Deputy Attorneys General Melissa Goldman and Bill Weinhoff, as well as our court reporter Jean McManus, are all on the island of Oahu. Commissioner Nancy Cabral is on Hawaii Island. Commissioner Ohigashi is on Maui, and Commissioner Dan Giovanni is on Kauai. There are currently 8 seated commissioners of a possible 9. Our first order of business is adoption of the November 18th, 2020 minutes. Mr. Hakoda or Mr. Derrickson, has there been any written testimony submitted on the adoption of the minutes?
Mr. Chair, this is Riley. We have no public testimony on the minutes.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify solely on adoption of the minutes? If so, I would ask you to use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform and indicate that you wish to testify. Seeing none. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to adopt? Commissioner Cabral?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made by Commissioner Cabral and seconded by Commissioner Ohigashi to adopt the minutes. Are there any discussions on the motion? If not, Mr. Ordenker, please do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to adopt the minutes. Commissioner Cabral,
Yes.
Commissioner Ohigashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Axon is absent. Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Okuda,
Yes.
Commissioner Giovanni,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Ordenker, for noting that Commissioner Axon is not here. Next meeting agenda item is the tentative meeting schedule. Mr. Ordenker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On December 30th, we will be holding a hearing on the Sea Brewer bifurcation. That's a status review. On January 6th and 7th, we will be holding hearings on the matter currently before us, the HoKua Place matter. On the 6th, we will be hearing a motion for protective order. And on the 7th, we will be hearing And we will begin proceedings on the district boundary amendment. On the 7th, we will be hearing the district boundary amendment as well. On January 28th, we will be have a hearing on the Barry Trust matter. Whoops, page. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair. On February 5th, we will also be holding a hearing on the Barry Trust matter and the UN Ben Corp matter requesting the LUC to be the accepting authority. On February 11th, we will begin hearings with on the Oahu Important Agricultural Land Designation by the City and County of Honolulu. And we will begin that on the 11th with an informational briefing for the commissioners and the public as to what's been submitted and the process. On February 24th, we will begin hearings on the City and County of Honolulu IAL submittal, as well as the 25th. On March 10th, we will be hearing the HoKua Place matter if required. That's on the 10th and the 11th of March. And on the 25th and 24th and 25th of March, we will once again take up the City and County of Honolulu's IAL submission. And that takes us through April, and we would ask the commissioners to hold their calendars open in April and May for any potential hearings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Commissioners, are there any questions for Dan with our schedule? Commissioner Giovanni.
Is there any update on whether these meetings will be virtual meetings or in-person meetings?
We have to play that on a month-by-month basis. It depends on the governor's emergency proclamation. If that emergency proclamation expires or does not contain the necessary language for us to continue to hold Zoom meetings, we will have to hold them in person.
I just want to the extent we can, I'd like to encourage that we continue the virtual meetings where it makes sense on a going forward basis.
Thank you, Commissioner Giovanni. We would also like to continue that for a whole bunch of reasons, and safety being one of them. However, we may have problems from a legal standpoint. We have to adhere to Chapter 91 and Chapter 92 if the governor's emergency proclamation does not continue.
Commissioners, are there other further questions for Dan about the schedule? If not, Mr. Ordenker, I'd like to agendize for a future meeting a discussion of that would be addressing what happens if we have to go to physical meetings, whether or not we can pursue hybrid meetings, and we'd probably also include a briefing on the Office of Information Practices current bills intending to amend public meeting law to deal with the pandemic and remote meetings, if that's possible.
We will agendize that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, folks, we are now at the next item on our agenda. Docket number A11-791, HG Kauai Joint Venture LLC, HoKua Place, Kauai's petition to amend the land use district boundary of certain lands situated at Kapa'a, Island of Kauai, State of Hawaii, consisting of 97 acres from the agricultural and rural district to the urban district. Tax map key number 44-303, a portion of lot 1. Specifically to consider Liko'olani Martin, Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association, and Sierra Club Kauai's petition to intervene in docket number A11-791 and any other petitions to intervene that may have been timely filed. Will the parties identify themselves for the record?
William Ewan on behalf of
Commissioners.
petitioner.
Call him, I will call petitioner.
Petitioner.
William Ewan on behalf of petitioner HG Kauai Limited Partnership.
Okay, thank you. County of Kauai.
Good morning, Deputy County Attorney Chris Donahoe for the County Attorney's Office on Kauai.
Office of Planning.
Good morning, Chair, members, Deputy Attorney General Donna Puna. On behalf of the State Office of Planning, Rodney Funakoshi is here with me today.
Okay, and I will also note, Mr. Martin, you're not yet a party to this proceeding. That's what today's hearing is about, but I'm going to note your presence here with us.
Thank you.
Mahalo. Before we begin, let me update the record regarding this docket. On December 17th and 18th, 2019, the Commission met on Kauai to consider the acceptance of the petitioner's final environmental impact statement, or FEIS, for the petition to amend the land use district boundary of the subject petition area. On December 23rd of 2019, the Commission mailed correspondence to the Office of Environmental Quality Control, hereinafter referred to as OEQC, requesting publication of the FEIS in the environmental notice publication. On August 27th of this year, the Commission received the petitioner's amended petition for a land use district boundary amendment. On September 18th, the Commission mailed correspondence to the petitioner's representative acknowledging receipt of documents and notifying the representative that the Commission would be accepting the FEIS, thereby deeming it complete. On November 6, 2020, the Commission met with the parties and potential interveners, Commission staff, to establish a schedule to file their documents with the Commission and each other, and mailed its pre-hearing order resulting from that meeting to the parties and to potential interveners, Liko Martin, Sierra Club, and the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association. On November 10th, the Commission mailed the filing schedule for documents to the parties and potential interveners. From December 19th, 2019, until today, December 3rd, 2020, the Commission has received approximately 20 emails and written public testimonies on this matter, which have been posted to our website and made a part of the record. On November 20th, 2020, the Commission mailed the agenda notice of the December 3rd, 2020 meeting to the parties, to potential interveners, as well as our statewide email and Kauai mailing lists. On November 25th, 2020, two significant events occurred. First, the Commission received an email from David Kimo Frankel, Esquire, attorney for the Sierra Club, representing that the Sierra Club would not be following through with its original plan to intervene, and suggesting that it was possible that the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association would also not decide to intervene as well. Second, the Commission received an email from Mr. Liko Martin confirming his intent to intervene. We note that there were no attachments to the initial email, nor there was a filing field accompanying the initial email to intervene. On November 27th, the Commission received Liko Martin's substantive written petition to intervene and his filing fee. As of the date of this meeting, the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association has not submitted any notices indicating a desire to intervene. Finally, on December 1st, 2020, the Commission received HG Kauai Joint Venture LLC's memorandum in opposition to the petition to intervene by Liko Martin. I've now updated the record, so now let me briefly describe our procedures for today, which will consider the timely motion to intervene in the boundary amendment petition. First, I'm going to give an opportunity to the petitioner to comment on the Commission's policy governing reimbursement of hearing expenses. Second, I will call for any individuals who wish to testify on this matter to identify themselves. I will ask you to do so by raising your hand using the raise your hand function in the Zoom meeting box. When you've raised your hand, I will bring you in one by one. I will admit you to be part of the main panel of the meeting. I will swear you in, ask you to identify your name and address for the record, and then I will give you the opportunity to testify. After you're done testifying, you will need to remain open to questioning from the petitioner, from the county, the Office of Planning, and the commissioners. After we've completed all public testimony on this matter, Mr. Martin will have his opportunity to make his presentation in support of his petition to intervene. Following Mr. Martin's presentation, we will receive argument on the motion from the petitioner, the county, and the State Office of Planning. After all parties have presented their arguments on the motion to intervene, the Commission will conduct our deliberations and possibly issue a decision on the motion. Are there any questions on our procedure for today, beginning with the petitioner? Mr. Ewan.
No questions.
County,
Commissioner, no questions by the County of Kauai.
thank you. OP,
No questions, Chair.
okay. Mr. Martin, do you understand our procedures?
I do.
Okay, great. Mr. Ewan, you've reviewed HAR 1515-45.1 with regard to the reimbursement of LUC hearing expenses.
Yes,
Okay, what's your stance?
we agree. Petitioner agrees.
Okay, thank you. With that, is there anyone in the audience who desires to provide public testimony on this matter today? And to be clear, what we're considering today is not the substance of the petition, but rather the petition to intervene. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to testify on this matter? If so, use the raise your hand function and I will admit you in. I see a number of people in, I have two screens, so this is why I'm leaning over. I see a number of people who are in the meeting, but I do not see anybody who is raising their hands. Now there is, okay. Well, Ms. Rain Ragush, I'm going to admit you to the meeting. When you come in, please enable your camera and your microphone. Ms. Ragush.
Good morning, commissioners.
Can you enable your video?
Enable.
Good morning.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm first going to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes,
Okay, please state your name and address for the record, and then you may proceed with your testimony.
my name is Rain Regish. Address is 5820A Halakahiki Place, Kapa'a, Hawaii 96746.
Please proceed.
Good morning, commissioners. Again, my name is Rain Regish. I serve as chairperson for the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association, and I'm also the co-chair of the Sierra Club Kauai group. Unfortunately, both our organizations were unable to move forward to petition to intervene on this docket. However, I support Lico Martin's petition to intervene. He is a well-known community member with the best intentions, and given the opportunity to submit exhibits and expert witnesses, he will ensure that the commissioners are fully informed. This developer, as you know, has tinkered with this project for almost a decade. And as you saw, the EIS was patched over and over again, causing deep confusion for the public and for the reviewing agencies. It will bring to light many ungrounded claims and outdated information that was put forth. And Lico Martin's intervention will allow the full story to be presented. And we are in support of that. We were also anticipating that the petitioner's motion for a protective order was going to be on the agenda today, but now I understand it will be in January. So that was of a concern. We were hoping to determine whether the commission had received the three important documents that they had spelled out in the LUC letter of September 18th. So we thought that would be part of the record today. So again, we're in support of Lico's petition. And in closing, I want to let you know that Bridget Hammerquist, who is on the call, but by phone does not have the technology to raise her hand to be included. So Chairperson Schurer, if you could call on her at some point during the public testimony, that would be great.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Rigosh. Scheuer is how it's pronounced.
Thank you.
I would need to know what telephone number
Yes.
she is calling from.
So her phone number ends in the number 1973.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
And if I can just add, as this thought is coming, because we did receive the motion for a protective order, and back in August, we did receive the financials. And again, it just instilled little confidence in us when we see their net profit and loss is a negative $38,000. So with having the opportunity to explore much more of this project, I think it might allow us to make a better decision going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ragush. Are there questions for Ms. Ragush, beginning with the petitioner, Mr. Ewan? You're muted, Mr. Ewan. Mr. Ewan, does the petitioner have questions for the witness?
I'm sorry, I was muted. No questions.
Thank you very much. County of Kauai. Mr. Donahoe.
The County of Kauai has no questions for Mr. Rigosh.
OP.
No questions, Chair.
Commissioners. Questions? Anyone? If not, thank you very much for your testimony and for taking the time to be with us today. I'm next going to call, so I will now move you to back to being an attendee, and I'm going to admit Bridge. Let me find the right number. Oh. So, folks, the way the Zoom controls look, if you're calling in, I can't admit you to be a panelist, but I am able to enable Ms. Hammerquist's audio. Ms. Hammerquist, are you able to hear me? Ms. Hammerquist? Oh, you are muted. So you need to okay, I think I can unmute you. Thanks for your patience, folks. Okay, so Mr. Derrickson or Mr. Hakoda, there might be something that Ms. Hammerquist needs to do on her phone, a key combination to unmute herself. Oh.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you. Okay. I apologize.
No.
My site limitations and the technology. It's mostly my site. I apologize.
I understand. Button. It's nice to be with you, Bridge. I'm going to swear you in first, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you would state your name and address for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bridget Hammerquist. My address is 2963 Pua Alani Place, Kaua, Hawaii.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm here today as a member of the public, but I'm also testifying in support of Mr. Martin's petition. In particular, I'm currently involved with a lawsuit that involves the County of Kauai over the issue of the delivery of water to the subject area. And I have personal knowledge of the limitations of the water available for the area between Hanamaulu and Kapa'a. And I'm concerned because as I reviewed the FEIS, and I acknowledge that I haven't necessarily exhausted all of it, I was unable to find where the developer disclosed to the commission that there are already 441 residential units and several more resort units permitted for development in the same area that will rely on the same water source. Those have been considered in the current water source, whereas HoKua Place has not yet been permitted and has not been considered. They already have a shortage for what is permitted. So I'm very concerned that the commissioners understand the amount of development that has been approved ahead of HoKua Place before making the decision to redistrict from ag to urban ag lands, which are valuable and much needed for the island of Kauai. And so in that regard, I am here today to say that I would support and do support Lico Martin's petition, and will be making available documents to him for his production on, I believe, the 10th of December. And that's the sum of my testimony this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hammerquist. I'm going to ask you to stand by if folks have questions for you, beginning with Mr. Ewan for the petitioner.
No questions.
Thank you. County.
Thank you, Chair. No questions by the county.
Okay, OP.
No questions.
Commissioners. Commissioners. I will just disclose that I spent quite a few meetings in the company of Ms. Hammerquist representing the Department of Hawaiian Homelands on separate water matters on Kauai, and she was representing a community group, which is how I know her. Any other questions for Ms. Hammerquist at this time? If not, thank you very much for your testimony today.
Thank you, members of the commission. I appreciate having the opportunity.
Okay. I'm now just clicking removing you from the meeting. I'm hoping that's not going to, no. I'm going to disable talking. There we go. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to testify on this matter? If so, please use the raise your hand function in the Zoom meeting. Seeing none. I'm going to close public testimony on this matter. And we're now going to proceed with Mr. Martin and your presentation. Could you please share with us before you start about how long you intend to present for? About every 55 minutes, we take a break. So how long are you going to be want to present your case, Mr. Martin?
I would say within 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And as we do for all non-attorneys, I'm going to swear you in before you begin. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Okay, mahalo. So please proceed with your presentation.
Okay. Greetings, commissioners. For the record, I have not received the 3 documents the LUC has required the developer to deliver. I have received, however, the LUC emails of November 5th, 10th, and 19th in order to prepare for this hearing. My email address on those emails, along with that of the developer, provided ample time, opportunity, and a means to comply with the LUC order. That's just for the record, please. I would like to start with the statements that my family has lineage in this area of Kauai. I have in my possession Records dated December 4th, certified December 1st, 2020 from the Bureau of Conveyances, establishing the pertinent lands under question as inalienable and part of the Crown Land Estate and subject to the obligation of the state of Hawaii, which is a holder in trust, administrator in trust. And that this document, in anticipation of the December 10th, would be submitted in conjunction with a list of qualified and expert witnesses and other exhibits on subjects and issues articulated in my petition filed November 27th, 2000. By certificate of service, hand-delivered, and by way of the U.S. Postal Service express mail. And I'd be happy to provide those documents for verification. I have grave concerns about the infrastructure impact, as I have documents from the Kauai Department of Water establishing the limited freshwater resource available and lack of availability for the proposed HoKua Place residences. Specifically, my concern stems from the fact that there are already over 400 new homes planned and permitted for the development in the same area, which I don't believe were disclosed in the developer's EIS. I am also concerned, among other things, that the runoff, as an intervener and active cultural practitioner and steward with generational knowledge of the area, I would like to present evidence of the impact of the wetlands and streams on the property that will be generated and caused by the excess runoff from that this development would create. At this time, in closing, I request the Commission to approve my petition to intervene and consider a delay in the tentatively scheduled December 10th document hearing and the January 6th and 7th, 2021 hearings. Since the hearing, in my opinion, is foundational to providing the Commission with the crucial information relative to its decision-making. I sincerely feel I need more time to prepare for the hearings and am in the process of securing legal counsel. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Martin?
Yeah, we have to start hearing.
Commissioner Chang. You're muted, Ms. Chang.
Aloha, Mr. Martin. I'm Dawn Chang, one of the commissioners. Thank you for being here this morning. When you said that your family has lineage in this area, so are you asserting that you have traditional customary practices that you exercise in this area, or that your family has exercised in the area?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And you currently live on Kauai as well?
Yes, I have a residence there.
I have no other questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioners, further questions for Mr. Martin? Commissioner Giovanni.
Thank you, Chair Scheuer. Mr. Martin, in your brief testimony, you indicated that in your review of the FEIS, that the petitioner neglected to recognize more than 400 homes that are being developed and permitted, and that would have an impact on the water issues in the area. It was also consistent with the public testimony provided by Ms. Hammerquist. On a related basis, have you had an opportunity to consider the impact that these same developments, the 400 plus developments, might have on the traffic in the area and whether or not the FEIS adequately addressed the traffic issues in that context. Thank you.
Yes, I have been concerned about that, but I did not feel to address that specifically here. The traffic definitely is a major concern because it is extremely congested already. And I don't think that that was adequately addressed also in the EIS, as well as many other issues.
If the commission elects to grant you intervenor status, is it your position that you would be not only able but intent on addressing those traffic issues as an intervenor in this matter?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Giovanni. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Martin? Oh, Commissioner Wong, followed by Commissioner Cabral.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Martin.
Good morning.
Okay. The question I have is regarding your intervention in such that you're talking about water issues and cultural issues, correct?
I was a little garbled there on your statement.
So intervention is only on water issues and cultural issues, is that correct?
No.
Okay, so what are you requesting for?
It's very garbled. I'm unable to clearly hear your question.
The question, Mr. Martin, is what specific issues are you wishing to have your intervention focus on?
Well, they are outlined in my 3-page filing of the 27th, and cultural, environmental, social impact. My residence there on the island, as an example, has 20 years with a custom upholstery and just providing services. I know many hundreds of people in the area. So those are, and health and safety issues also.
So the question I have is more in the sense that how be different than any other person?
Okay.
I know the audio is really bad for some reason in the LUC hearing room.
Thank you.
I believe Commissioner Wong, and you can like gesture if I'm getting it wrong, Commissioner Wong. I believe the question is, how do you believe your perspective or interests are distinguishable from those of the general public?
Yes. Because I descend from the area. I'm a cultural practitioner of the area also, from Mauka to Makai. At one time I was, in the newspaper holding my throw net. I'm a avid throw net fisherman and planter, involved in actually by the Moikeha stream, involved in a long time project to restore some of the fish pond access that's in the back there.
Many other activities. Did I capture Commissioner Wong the question correctly?
Yeah. So the other question I have is, did you talk or did you put any testimony in during the EIS process?
No.
What did you know about the EIS process, sir?
Yes, I was familiar with it. I am somewhat familiar.
So I guess at that time you could have put your issues on the EIS process. So I just was wondering why you didn't at that time.
Okay, at that time I was unaware of the public component.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Cabral, followed by Commissioner Okuda.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Martin, for being with us and expressing your concerns. In reviewing some of the notes I've taken from the information I've received, it looks like you're wanting to intervene on a large series of items, including what you've already previously stated. You have your cultural concerns, you have traffic concerns, you have concerns for agriculture usage, the water concerns, sewer concerns, traffic, of course. And then you indicated also concerns over view lines and social input. And then you've just now references health and safety. So I'm just kind of, and I understand you've been involved or in opposition to this for many, many years. Looks like from 2011. So have you obtained additional like professional information in regards to these traffic studies or water studies or sewer land use studies or something? My question is it you just based on your opinion of this, or because we're going to be listening to information from the county and from the state who we expect to have professional opinions from. So what is your expertise in these fields, or do you have experts in these fields that are going to be able to substantiate your personal opinion?
Okay, I have been gathering contacts to have my own personal, like an example, hydrologists, and that would be separate from maybe somewhat similar, but would add on to anything that that would be provided by the professional, bodies like the county. I'm actually thank you for your question, because I'm gathering these and becoming aware of these the various details of information, as you heard from Rain, and I'm in consultation with them, and that's would be my answer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for participating. You heard the testimony of the two prior public witnesses. Is that correct?
I didn't get the first part of your question, your opening statement.
Right.
The audio.
Okay, I'm sorry. My first statement was to thank you for participating.
Okay.
My question was whether or not you heard the public testimony of the public witnesses.
Yes.
Okay, they mentioned that they were willing to work with you if your petition or request for intervention was granted or is granted. Are you willing to work with them and others in the community to prepare yourself for whatever presentation you need to make if your petition for intervention is granted?
Yes, I am aware. I did hear the comments of the two previous, Rain and Bridget, and I'm grateful for their appearing before this commission on this day to support my petition to intervene.
Okay. Now, we really try to encourage public participation because, at least me personally, democracy functions better if all the citizens have a say in what takes place. But the Land Use Commission also has to follow certain legal standards and certain rules set out by the legislature, by statute, in the administrative rules, and also case law, which might be set out by the Hawaii Supreme Court. If your intervention is granted, are you willing to also abide by these rules and laws to the best of your ability?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
And finally, Mr. Martin, no, actually that concludes all the questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin, for your
Okay.
presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Okuda. Commissioners, are there further questions for Mr. Martin at this time? If not, Mr. Martin, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
I'll disclose first, when I worked at the Office of Foreign Affairs, I was able to work with Marion for,
My mother.
yeah. So,
All right.
nice to make your acquaintance.
Thank you.
I reviewed your petition to intervene, and I want to draw attention to one set of issues that you raised, because if we can either grant or deny your petition to intervene, and if we grant it, we can limit the subject matter on which you intervene. We can say, you can comment on these matters, but not on these matters. And you were explicit in your petition to intervene that you wanted to raise issues of United States constitutional law and in the relationship. I don't have the, let me pull up the document so I don't misquote you. I'm an independent Hawaiian elder concerned about the environmental impact and potential illegalities that would arise in this case under the Constitution of the United States of America and the laws of Hawaii with respect to Hawaiian national usage. And just for the sake of clarity, I'd like you to expand a little bit upon what you mean by that and what your hope is to intervene on that matter so that we can make a meaningful decision on whether to grant or deny that portion of your request.
Okay. The document that I got from the Bureau of Conveyances with respect to the substantial evidence that those lands in question are actually under trust obligation of the state of Hawaii, I think is the thrust of, there are many other issues, but that in particular, if there's a, without that information, what would result would be violations of the Constitution and laws, existing laws of the state of Hawaii.
So to follow
and
up,
especially with respect to usage, in reviewing the terms of the lease from the Crown Land estate by the Crown Land Commissioners in 1877, there were certain issues expressed by the first party, meaning the heirs to the estate, regarding the protection of forests and trees, and especially with respect to the environment, and so that's to me an issue of usage, yes, an issue of usage of historically usage that was qualified and identified at the time of the Hawaiian Kingdom, and that the Hawaiian national usage that I referred to is actually initially was part of the Republic of Hawaii in the Constitution. It was part of the it's something that the state can legally, technically refer to, and that's the nature, and it of course it extends to all kinds of usages, the rights in the piscary, which would be severely affected, of gathering, and just the maintenance of the waterways, the type of usage. And this is the extent nature of my reference to that term.
So I mahalo for the explanation. I just want to be clear that this is, I'm very aware and fully acknowledge there are many people who believe the state of Hawaii and the federal government are not properly seated in the Hawaiian Islands, and that there continues to exist a Hawaiian nation. But for us, for my ability to participate as a member of this commission and now as chair, one of the things I have to do is I have to swear an oath of allegiance to the state of Hawaii and the United States Constitution to uphold it. So we're bound within US and state law in our ability to talk about things. Claims that might arise from outside of that are outside of our ability to have a discussion about within this menu.
Yes,
that
I am
understood?
aware.
Okay.
Yes, I am aware of the limitations and the boundaries that you operate under, and
Okay.
respectfully so.
Okay, mahalo. Can I ask you a little bit more about two of the cultural practices and just make sure that we have on the record? You have mentioned that you are, I believe, fishermen in the
Yes.
Makai areas Makai of this.
Directly Makai, yes.
Okay, and you briefly mentioned fish ponds, but I didn't quite follow what you were describing. So could you describe on a broad spectrum, your
Okay.
cultural practice?
Okay. Given that the land in question is actually on a slope, which would be important for the I would say about a 15 degree slope, very many wetlands and fish ponds that still exist. As an example, in back of the where the boats launch in Kapa'a, in the back there are many fish ponds, endangered species habitat that the Koiula is there, and specifically to me by the Mo'ikeha stream, which was an entrance to, of course, Mo'ikeha, historically the navigator, and the entrance to the fish ponds there, and from extending from there all the way over into the Wailua Ahupua'a. I have been very familiar with the the kind of the delicacy that is required by developers. Okay, and there were issues I was involved in and currently am registered with the Department of Interior in Washington, D.C. as a caretaker and lineal descendant to the within the historic designation of Wailua Nui Ahuano Complex.
If I may, just it was a briefer question, perhaps.
Okay.
Just what is the nature of your cultural practice associated with that site?
Limu, fish ponds, and actual fishing, planting of coconut groves, removing species that have invaded the area, and Kalo and Jailan Kalo. I have very close with Dr. De La Pena before he retired, so I'm very much a practitioner in the importance of Kalo.
Okay, mahiai kalo. Mahalo. I'm going to pause for now, recognize Commissioner Giovanni.
Thank you, Chair. I want to revisit a question that Commissioner Okuda asked. I'm not sure I got a clear response from Mr. Martin, so I want to make sure it's very clear for the record.
Okay. I'm not hearing the question.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Mr. Martin?
Now I can, but I did not.
So Commissioner Okuda asked that, or indicated that in the public testimony we heard today that representatives from the Sierra Club Kauai and the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association had offered not only support for your intervention, but that they would work with you to support your intervention if it so be granted. The question was whether you would welcome and utilize their assistance in your intervention. That's the Sierra Club and the Wailua Kapa'a Neighborhood Association.
Yes, I would.
Thank you, that's all.
Are there further questions, commissioners, for Mr. Martin right now? If not, it is 9:54 a.m. I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute recess and we reconvene it's 9:55 at 10:05 a.m. Well, we'll conclude any further questions for Mr. Martin. Recess till 10:05. Okay.
Body.
It's
spirit.
10:05. We're back on the record. Commissioners, are there any further questions for Mr. Martin? at this time? Seeing none, let's hear from Mr. Ewan on behalf of the petitioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Petitioner objects to the intervention. In particular, we object to consideration or discussion of any claims based on a violation of the Constitution or Native Hawaiian title issues, since these issues are outside of the jurisdiction of the commission. I'm keeping my remarks brief.
Very. Commissioners, are there questions for Mr. Ewan? Commissioner Chang, followed by Commissioner Okuda. You're muted, Commissioner Chang. Sorry. We haven't been meeting enough and we're all getting out of practice, I guess.
No, I apologize. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Ewan. Would you agree that under 15-15-52D, intervention shall be liberally granted? Freely granted.
Yes,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
At the time that the petition was submitted, Mr. Martin did not indicate any residence on Kauai or any he was directly interested in the subject matter of the petition. We understand the standards for granting intervention.
And in light of the testimony by Mr. Martin this morning, that 1, he is a resident of Kauai, 2, he is a cultural practitioner, 3, he's got some family lineage to the area. Do you still object to his participation, his intervention?
I think our position is formally for the record, but I'm purposely keeping my remarks brief because my intervention is not particularly strenuous in this area.
That's good to know. I just, for the record,
Sorry, Commissioner Chang, if I may just briefly interject, Mr. Martin, it might be Ms. Teal's hand is somewhat distracting. Thank you.
okay. So,
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Ewan, under the same rules, it says the applicant for intervention is there anyone else in the proceeding that represents the interests that Mr. Martin represents, in particular interests related to Native Hawaiian rights?
I don't.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your testimony. It kind of garbled.
I said I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ewan. I appreciate your comments. Mr. Chair, I have no further comments, no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ewan, thank you very much for being present. I have some follow-up questions to Commissioner Chang's question about the standard for intervention. Is there any difference in your mind as far as the applicable standard between the standard which is applied for a judicial intervention and intervention in an administrative proceeding such as the Land Use Commission? Do we apply basically the same standard of review?
I believe you do. The standard that goes way back to the East Diamond Head Association case from the late 1960s, I think set the standard for intervention in both land use judicial cases, and I think the commission has followed that standard over the years.
And when applying the judicial standard of intervention, the courts also look at the technical legal issue of standing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And just so that we have the record clear, you know, I read your opposition memorandum, and I appreciate your clarification that you gave to Commissioner Chang about your client's position. I didn't see any citation to any cases, but did you look at this case, Life of the Land versus Land Use Commission of State of Hawaii, that's found at 63 Hawaii 166, a 1981 Hawaii Supreme Court case?
I'm familiar with the case.
Yeah, if you can just indulge me, let me just read two rather short paragraphs from the case and a footnote, and if you can tell me whether what I read or what I'm going to read is an accurate statement of the law, which should be considered by the Land Use Commission in determining Mr. Martin's petition or application for intervention. Okay, and let me start here. It says, and I quote, there has been an unmistakable parallelism in the substance of our standing decisions involving the particular interests Life of the Land seeks to protect, and in the substance of related federal decisions, and there's a citation. And then the Supreme Court continues, while the term, quote, injury in fact, close quote, may not appear in their text, our decisions have afforded standing on a basis at least coextensive with federal doctrine where harm to such interest has been alleged. This is not to suggest our standing requisites will follow every twist or turn in the development of federal doctrine. Our touchstone remains, quotes, the needs of justice, close quote, and then there's discussion. But let me also read this paragraph, quote, Life of the Land and its members have a, quote, stake, close quote, in the outcome of the alleged controversy adequate to invoke judicial intervention, even though they are neither owners nor adjoining owners of land, reclassified by the Land Use Commission in the 1974 Boundary Review. What the Land Use Commission argues are generalized interests have been previously recognized and pleaded here as personal and special interests or rights. And there's a footnote which might be worth repeating here. And that footnote says, see Hawaii State Constitution, Article 11, Section 9, Environmental Rights, reading, colon, each person has the right to a clean and healthful environment as defined by laws relating to environmental quality, including control of pollution and conservation, protection and enhancement of natural resources. Any person may enforce this right against any party, public or private, through appropriate legal proceedings subject to reasonable limitations and regulations as provided by law. And the footnote continues for another sentence. Would you agree that that part of the decision of the Hawaii Supreme Court, which I read, suggests that Mr. Martin's petition for intervention should be granted?
I could certainly see the Land Use Commission granting this petition.
Okay, I do agree with you that the Land Use Commission is an administrative agency with limits on its subject matter, and we cannot act on matters which are not part of the subject matter. But would you also agree that our chairperson seems very capable in limiting or excluding extraneous types of evidence which would be outside of our jurisdiction or would be simply wasting time, that are you know, if it comes down to things that are being brought up which are outside of our jurisdiction, our chair has not only the ability but the authority to keep that type of discussion from spiraling into a place it shouldn't go.
I have great confidence in the abilities of the chair. I suggest, however, that should the commission grant the intervention, the commission would specifically preclude the from raising issues of constitutionality or Hawaiian sovereignty or title issues of that sort, since the petitioner acquired foreclosure sale, and the foreclosure sale from which we acquired title addressed all prior claims of title to the land. So I just submit that title claims, regulations of land use based on the Constitution of the state of Hawaii are not generally been the jurisdiction of the Land Use Commission to address.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but would you agree with me that the chairperson that we currently have is capable of making those types of decisions on evidence or testimony which frankly is irrelevant to the proceeding, that he can make the decision at that time based on what's presented before him? So we have a clear record as far as what is not being considered, that he has the smarts and the ability to do so.
As I said, I have no doubts about the abilities of the chair. It's just that, you know, I would prefer not to have to prepare to defend against such issues if on the chance that the chair allows them to proceed. It's a matter of just how much preparation or what kinds of issues we have to prepare for, in addition to the land use issues that are normally considered by the commission in determining any petition for reclassification.
Okay, and my final question, Mr. Yuen, is having heard Mr. Martin's presentation, has there been any indication in the record that Mr. Martin would not, in fact, follow the direction of the chair? In other words, Mr. Martin might not agree, but if the chair were to make a ruling that he's not permitted to, for reasons such as subject matter jurisdiction, he's not permitted to make a presentation on certain points, or his evidence would be excluded. Is there any evidence that, Mr. Martin is just going to be disruptive and not follow the direction of the chair?
I certainly haven't seen anything to indicate that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yuen, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ohigashi, followed by Commissioner Chang.
I was reading your memorandum, and on page 3 on the bottom, you state that, you can hear me, in addition, County of Kauai Planning Department and the Office of Planning adequately represent the interests expressed by Mr. Martin. Main concerns are of general concerns of all developing projects, including risk to environmental resources, water, and traffic. These interests are already represented by the state and county. Do you have any other limitations other than the, I guess, the constitutional argument that you believe should be placed in an order regarding Mr. Martin's participation, if allowed to intervene?
I have no objection to the commission so order. I said I have no objection.
No objections to him participating fully other than with the limitation that he's the constitutional issues. Is that what you?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that the commission limit his participation to that would normally be within the commission's jurisdiction, but preclude raising constitutional or issues or issues related to Hawaiian sovereignty and that sort of thing.
Thank you. I got it.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi.
This is not the first time the commission has been faced with those claims.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi. Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. Mr. Yoon, I just want to clarify, when you say constitutional issues, I want to be clear that you're not suggesting that Mr. Martin is precluded from raising issues related to Article 12, Section 7. He's indicated that he is a cultural practitioner, that under the Constitution, if he can establish that he has traditional customary practices, that is a constitutionally protected right. You're not suggesting he's not permitted to argue that, are you?
Suggesting is that if he says that any reclassification may be a violation of original land, because these are crown lands that the town has long since alienated away, those kinds of issues should be precluded from it.
Okay, so I guess let me just ask one more point. So notwithstanding the manner in which the petitioners obtained the land, would you agree that their lands are encumbered with the rights under Article 12, Section 7? That it's not necessarily a title issue, but it is a constitutionally guaranteed right that if he can establish as a cultural practitioner. So it's not a sovereignty, but it is.
If he can establish rights as a cultural practitioner, that the undeveloped land covered by those rights, yes.
Okay, I just want to be very clear that the constitutional objections you have are not, do not preclude him from raising the Article 12, Section 7. And you seem to agree with that.
No. Yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yuan. Thank you.
Commissioners, further questions for Mr. Yuan? If not, Mr. Yuan, I am trying to understand some of what you said, because there were three issues you mentioned, which I just want to make sure I really clearly understand what you're saying, because when you say things like sovereignty stuff, I'm not exactly sure what the bounds are of what your concerns are. I do believe, so you said constitutional issues, sovereignty matters, and title issues. I do believe that actually it's very squarely within the Land Use Commission's jurisdiction that an owner of a property is somebody who has the right to bring a petition forward. But to be very clear for you and for Mr. Martin, the standard that the LUC has on that is that we're not going to hold a hearing on the validity of your title report. If you show us a title report and your insured title that exists and you say, this is our property, you will have met the needs that we have to establish that you have the right to bring this petition forward. And that would be the end of our inquiry in relationship to title. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, yes.
So are you objecting to
I guess
presenting us with your
but-
title certificate or as part of these proceedings?
I believe we can provide you with some title insurance policy. It may be old because it may date back when we acquired the property, but it would show our title to the property.
Okay. I would just note this is
I think
not
by way of
unusual.
analogy, years ago,
Go ahead.
a number of years ago, someone tried to being in a land use commission boundary amendment petition that I had on the basis that he was the heir of a grantee who acquired title to the entire island of Maui. And he wanted the land use commission to hear his claim.
So to be clear, we are
And
not
the land use
equipped.
commission did not grant intervention for that.
We are not equipped.
Yes.
Nor capable or empowered to determine any claims to title. But we do review people's titles reports. I will note for the record and for you that issues of whether or not the owner is the actual owner of title has come up in questions not involving any Native Hawaiian concerns. In Waikoloa Mauka, we were concerned whether or not the person who was showing up in front of us continued to own the property that they were seeking to act on, or they had otherwise encumbered it. So you're not objecting to us having a narrow inquiry into title as to just, you got to show us that you indeed currently own this property, correct? You're not objecting to that.
We did include as an exhibit our deed to the property.
Okay.
And that's been filed with the commission.
And by constitutional issues, you're really, I guess I didn't quite understand what you said when you said you would object to any raising of federal or state constitutional issues. Could you rephrase for clarity?
I guess what I heard the intervener raise was claims restricting the use of the land to agriculture, raising the standard of, or raising the question of whether the should be devoted to uses consistent with a public trust. And I don't believe those kinds of issues are within the purview of the Land Use Commission. If this is private property and not state land subject to a public trust.
Sorry, things like water, however, the public trust applies to regardless of property boundary, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But use of the land as opposed to use of water.
Well, I think I understand that objection. And finally, just what I perceive as you're being shorthand for sovereignty, when you said sovereignty issues or something that, like, you don't want this proceeding to be the venue for a discussion over whether or not the state of Hawaii and the federal government are legitimately seated in the state of Hawaii. Is that correct? Because sovereignty is a sort of really broad term, but that's really what you're talking about. Or have I misunderstood?
Yes, I don't think anyone should be able, at least before the Land Use Commission, raise the question of whether the any titles in the state have passed validly due to the validity of the
understood.
overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you on that regard. But I just want to be clear because sovereignty means a lot of things to a lot of people. And there might be things that people consider to be issues of sovereignty that do actually fall within our current jurisdiction. So I have nothing further. Is there anything further for Mr. Ewan? If not, thank you very much. We will hear from Mr. Donahoe of the County of Kauai.
Thank you, Chair. Given the petition, the testimony, the County of Kauai's role, statutes, as well as the case law, especially life of the land, cited by Commissioner Okuda, that the county is not objecting to the petition by Mr. Martin. The county appreciates Mr. Martin's testimony and presentation here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donahoe. Are there questions for the County of Kauai? And again, sorry, Mr. Martin, I realize you're trying to record or something this thing, but your assistant who's recording it's a bit distracting. Thank you. Questions for the County of Kauai? Commissioners. Commissioner Cabral.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Donahoe. By your sort of open blanket statement, you're indicating that you have no objection to all of the aspects of his request to be an intervener without limitation?
At this point, yes. Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? I will say for the, not picking on you, Mr. Donahoe, only that because your audio has been a little bit worse than everybody else's. I will just encourage everybody who's participating in this proceeding. What tends to work best is a computer with a headset or in a room just by yourself. And I have found not using Wi-Fi, but actually using a wired connection is what provides us an ability to maintain good audiovisual signal.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry.
Not picking on you though. Office of Planning, Ms. Takeuchi Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Martin's petition to intervene is made as a permissive right pursuant to HAR section 151552D, which shall be freely granted unless the commission determines that Mr. Martin's position is substantially the same as the position of a party already admitted, and his admission will render the proceedings inefficient and unmanageable. Mr. Martin has demonstrated that his position is different from that of the already admitted parties, and if limited in scope, Mr. Martin's admission as an intervener should not render the proceedings inefficient and unmanageable. If admitted as an intervener, Mr. Martin's participation should be limited in scope to those items of concern he has mentioned in his petition and during this hearing, namely water resources, view planes, maintenance of prime ag lands, vehicular transportation, cultural practices, environment, and health and safety. Based on the foregoing, OP has no objection to Mr. Martin's petition to intervene. And lastly, OP would like to know how much more time Mr. Martin would need to prepare and possibly secure counsel if admitted as an intervener. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Takeuchi Apuna, starting with Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. Don, based upon your listing of issues, in your mind, what would he be precluded from be outside of that list? What would he not be permitted? What issues would he not be permitted to participate in?
I can't, I mean, I don't know of any, I guess just what, this is a trick question. I think he should just be limited to those issues, and I can't really think of anything that he would necessarily be precluded, that he's mentioned that we should preclude. I think this is everything that he has asked to speak on in his scope, but I'm not sure what, I think it's just everything else should be, off limits.
And I guess that's the difficulty I have, is monitoring what is everything else. So as we go through the hearing, is there going to be sort of like a traffic cop who says, oh, that's outside of the scope of his issues, or that is, as opposed to the county's position is without limitations. So I'm just wondering, what do you believe he's not permitted to participate in or ask or raise?
Well, I think as far as, the traffic cop, I think that would be partial, that would be for the parties, petitioner, the county, or maybe petitioner and OP and the chair to, and even the commissioners, if they feel that this is that there are subjects that Mr. Martin would be delving into that are not aligned with his position, and that would seem to maybe duplicate certain issues, or would not be helpful to the commission in providing a fuller, view, then I think that would be the role of the parties and the chair. But I think if we just limit to the list of issues, and we believe that it's becoming unmanageable or inefficient, then the parties or the chair can call it out and say, let's get back on track.
But at this point in time, you cannot identify any specific issue that you believe he would be precluded from. You can't identify any.
Not necessarily.
Because I can't either. When I think about the EIS, I think he's covered just about all of them. So, okay, all right. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. Are there further questions for Ms. Apuna?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wong.
It's not a question for Ms. Apuna, but I would like to, after everyone has their chance to ask OP questions, I would like to make a motion for executive session. I'll see why after that.
Okay.
Everyone has a chance.
Okay. I'd like to, if there's no objections from Mr. Ewan or the county, I'd actually like to direct a question to Mr. Martin, which is essentially a repeating of the question raised by Ms. Apuna, which is, how long do you believe you need to prepare to obtain outside counsel and prepare for a hearing if your petition is granted in whole or in part?
Well, I would imagine maybe to February, possibly March.
Okay, that's your response for now. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, OP, I'm going to sort of translate here. Did you have a further follow-up in that regard?
No, I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Ms. Apuna.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ohigashi.
I was wondering, the January 10th date for I think it was January 10th or something like that, was for the motion for protective order. And I think the intervener, Mr. Martin, was asking for it to be moved. I don't see a reason to move it at this point in time, but I would appreciate to hear from Mr. Martin why it should be moved.
I'm noting Commissioner Wong wants to ask a question following Commissioner Ohigashi. Mr. Martin?
Oh, I did not hear the question fully.
Why do you request additional
Froze,
time
Mike.
to respond to the motion for protective order?
I'm going to confer with Ms. Hammerquist and Ms.
I would like to confer with Ms. Hammerquist and the others to
be able to consolidate the position.
To be able to consolidate the position, what would be the most appropriate time.
And also you haven't received the developer.
And
Okay.
also I haven't received,
you haven't received the developers thing.
the three items.
So you need to be able to look at those.
So let's,
Sorry,
Commissioner Higashi.
somebody's talking
Yes.
in the background.
Excuse me. Okay. I would like time to consult with Ms. Hammerquist and Rain regarding this. And I still need to receive the documents that I have not received from the developer. And so that's my response to it.
Okay, Commissioner Wong.
Chair, due to this line of questioning in others previously, I would like to move to executive session to see what is our ability to grant an extension of time with our legal counsel.
Okay, there's a motion before us to go to executive session to meet with the Commission's Deputy Attorney General in order to consult with them regarding our powers, duties, specifically with regards to ability or non-ability to extend time. It has been made by Commissioner Wong and seconded by Commissioner Ohigashi. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, Mr. Ordenker, will you please poll the commission?
Hey, Mr. Chair, the motion is to go into executive session. Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Ohigashi.
Aye.
Commissioner Cabral.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Aye.
Commissioner Okuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Giovanni.
Aye.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so for parties and intervener applicant Martin, as well as members of the audience, what will happen now is that a separate Zoom meeting invitation will be sent from Mr. Ordenker to the members of the commission and the deputy attorneys general. We will go into executive session with them. You will stay in this room. And I can't tell you how long it's going to be. You're going to have to hang out and wait for us, just like we would in a normal meeting. Then we come back into this room and continue with our proceedings. So we are moving into executive session. It is 11:25. We're going to go back into session, confirming that we have Commissioners Wong, Okuda, Chang, Ohigashi, Cabral, and Giovanni, and myself still present. Commissioners, we left off with questioning of the Office of Planning's Council. Are there any further questions for OP, or before we move into deliberation, questions for any of the parties or the potential intervener? Commissioners?
Yep. Oh, how do I get this?
Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I just have, if I could ask the petitioner, Mr. Ewan, did he see any limitations to the intervener's participation? Should that be granted? Do you see any limitations other than not raising the issue of title or sovereignty? Do you see any limitations?
Mr. Ewan.
No, Commissioner, as a practical matter, I think once the intervener is admitted to the proceedings, the interveners, it's hard to draw a line, if you will, to say, for instance, oh, the intervener cannot comment on traffic, to just use an example.
Sure. No, I greatly appreciate that, Mr. Yuen. Thank you very much. I have no other questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Chang. Commissioners, questions for any of the parties of the potential intervener? If not, commissioners, what is your pleasure on this matter? Commissioner Ohigashi,
Okay.
followed by Commissioner Okuda.
If Commissioner Okuda is going to make a motion, I'll leave it to him.
Commissioner Okuda, can Mr. Derrickson or Mr. Hokoda, could you make me co-host again, please? Sorry, I lost the ability to control people's hands and audio. Commissioner Okuda.
Yeah, actually, I defer to my senior Commissioner Ohigashi.
Okay.
Commissioner Ohigashi.
I'm going to move that we grant intervention to Mr. Martin. And I believe, well, strictly grant limitation, grant intervention to Mr. Martin. I'm also going to include in the motion that Mr. Martin is to file a motion for continuance, if he desires a continuance, outlining what dates may or may not be available to him for hearing on January 6th and 7th. That's all.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Leo Higashi of Maui to grant petitioners and potential interveners motion to intervene, subject only to a further request if the motion passes for the intervener to then timely file a motion for continuance. Commissioner Okuda, followed by Commissioner Chang.
Okay.
Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I was going to second.
Seconded by Commissioner Chang. Then Commissioner Okuda, followed by Chang.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the motion as made. I believe that the chair is capable, competent, and able to manage the proceedings. I don't believe that my conclusion is based on speculation. For example, if there was ever a hearing where the hearing could have gone, to use a colloquial term, sideways, where people would absolutely lose faith in the fairness of the procedure and proceeding, it would have been the petition filed by the Kanaheles regarding the Mauna Kea issue. The chair very skillfully handled that. That hearing had many contentious and controversial issues. I don't believe my observation was that everyone generally went away from the hearing feeling that the proceedings were conducted fairly, and that's the credit to the chair. So I believe that the motion as stated will allow the chair flexibility also to properly manage the proceeding. I believe the case law and the statute administrative rules make clear that petitioner has, or I'm sorry, Mr. Martin has demonstrated the proper foundation for intervention. So for those reasons, I'm supporting the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang? No? Commissioner Okuda, Ohigashi, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I agree with Commissioner Okuda, and I would implore the parties, or I would suggest to the parties that the Land Use Commission is of limited jurisdiction, and we have The issue is before us is a boundary amendment. And the issues are, or the debate or the determination is, standards are enunciated in both the statute and the rules. So I know that the parties will be careful to direct their arguments and their evidence towards those issues. And that those are those standards will be used to incorporate any decision that the Land Use Commission makes. I have confidence from Mr. Martin's filings that he intends not to use this as a matter for delay purposes, that he intends to try and make good faith arguments in this matter. Finally, I think that I'm asking that Mr. Martin file a formal motion for continuance for the 6th, to be heard on the 6th and 7th. However, I would encourage the parties, Mr. Ewan and Mr. Martin, to maybe get together with our executive director to see that if intervention is granted, see if a schedule can be worked out for hearings. There may be a need for us to have the hearing start on 6th and 7th. However, it does not mean that we would be presenting evidence necessarily on that date. But I would suggest to both the petition and interveners to get together with Mr. Ordenanker to try and work out a schedule that would meet everybody's needs for the 6th and 7th.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner Higashi. Commissioner Chang. You're muted, Commissioner Chang.
Okay. Yep. I greatly appreciated Mr. Yuan's response to my comment that the granting of the intervention would permit Mr. Martin to fully participate in the proceedings. But Mr. Martin, I think you are well aware that if you do not have counsel, you will be held to the same standards as if you had counsel. So I'm optimistic that you will, there have been those who've been willing to work with you, and you seem to have someone who's willing to help you. So I am optimistic that the hearing will be confined to the DBA and the issues before it. And as Commissioner Ohigashi, if there is a request for a continuance of the hearing, Mr. Martin, I would recommend you timely file that. And if the parties can work together on a schedule, that would be preferable. And but I will support this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Wong. Glad you're getting your aerobics, trying to get my attention.
So there's a couple things. It's with great reluctance, I will support this motion. I feel that the intervener should only limit himself to water resources and cultural practitioner issues. However, I will support the motion, but I also wanted to state to the intervener that if he is going to get counsel or assistance, that he has to be aware that when he does get the assistance, that it will not interrupt our proceedings. Just because when he was taking pictures and when someone was coaching him on the side, it really bothered me and it broke my train of thoughts. So just be aware that please, if you're going to have assistance, make sure it's kind of on the side or something. Okay? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Giovanni.
Thank you, Chair. I am in support of this motion. I think that the petition for a DBA has grown a bit stale. with regards to the final environmental impact statement. And it would be to the benefit of the commission to hear in more specific terms from the community.
Commissioner Giovanni, could you raise your voice perhaps?
Sit closer. Thank you for
Thank you.
asking me to do that. I'm in support of this motion. I think that this intervener will bring important information forward representing the community at large and have the ability to bring expert testimony in support of several critical issues to the community. And for that purpose, I favor this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Giovanni. Commissioners, we're in deliberation. Commissioner Cabral.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have concerns that this motion is so completely open-ended. By my reading of the information from the requesting intervener from Mr. Martin is that I'm looking at about 10 items that he's asking to intervene on. And yet I do not hear in our motion even a limitation that it's only going to be the items that he's already referenced in his current presentation. And so I'm concerned if this motion is open-ended to all of the 10 things I seen in his current presentation, and potentially all of the other things that could ever come up that he or any of the apparent party of people that are working with him or through him. I'm concerned that it's so open-ended that it will get unruly and that it'll be things that we can't deal with, and it'll be as OP Apuna indicated, it'll become something that becomes more of a difficult issue to deal with on structure or procedure than on substance. So I'm concerned about the motion being open-ended. That's my input at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabral. Commissioners, we're in deliberation on the motion from Commissioner Higashi. Is there further deliberation on the motion?
Chair, just
Commissioner Wong.
As our executive director stated previously about the timeline, that we have a hearing for this issue January 6th and 7th. And I hope that the intervener will work his schedule out so at least we can have some sort of hearing on the 6th and 7th regarding any continuance. You need to file it before that date, by the 29th of December, I think. Yeah, for the January meeting, I think.
December 29th.
Yeah, so
Sorry, at this point, even though we're in deliberation, if the executive officer has something to share, please share it directly.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wong was overhearing a conversation that Wiley and I were having. In order to ensure that we can properly agendize a motion for continuance, we would have to have that motion in hand no later than, I would prefer the close of business January 28th. I mean, December 28th.
Thank you. We're in deliberation. Commissioners, there's a motion in front of us. If commissioners are done speaking, I will speak in favor of the motion. I want to thank the petitioner to intervene for stepping forward to intervene. I think I've sensed from you, you have at least some sense of the burden which you're taking on by choosing to intervene on this. It's not a small burden. In that regard, I would echo the comments of my fellow commissioners that without counsel, you'll be held to the exact same standards as if you had counsel. What comes to mind is the proverb that in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. I would strongly encourage you. You're not required to have legal counsel, but it would be highly, highly advised based on my last 6 years of appearing as a commissioner here and seeing people appear both pro se as well as with counsel, that you would be well served if you had counsel to assist you on these matters and to do so as quickly as possible to get your counselor up to speed on these matters. And then I would just also note that I'm going to take you at your word for your understanding of the bounds and limitations of this commission and what we can consider. I also thank the, I'll speak in favor with some comfort with the comments from the county, the Office of Planning, as well as from Mr. Ewan acknowledging the unique perspectives that Mr. Martin has to bring to this matter. Is there anything further on deliberation before us, commissioners? If not, Mr. Orodenko, will you please poll the commission on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to grant intervention and instruct Mr. Martin to file a motion for continuance if he feels one is so required. Commissioner Ohigashi.
Aye.
Commissioner Chang.
Aye.
Commissioner Axon is absent. Commissioner Cabral.
No.
Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Okuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Giovanni.
Aye.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes with 6 affirmative votes and 1 negative vote and 1 abstention, or 1 absent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Orodenko. Thank you very much to the parties and now the intervener. And I will note that since the hearing on this particular matter is closed, a written order will be forthcoming spelling out this matter. Mr. Ewan, were you asking a question? You're leaning
Mr.
forward.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. The executive officer has set a deadline of December 10th to submit witness lists and lists of exhibits, and the 23rd to submit the exhibits themselves. Does this apply to, I'm sure it applies to us, but does it apply to the intervener as well?
It's a question for Mr. Orodenko.
Mr. Chair, the current filing schedule it still applies in the absence of a continuance.
So I think one of the parts of when he spoke to his motion, Commissioner Ohigashi encouraged all the parties to work together with the executive officer to revisit the schedule.
It is for the parties to agree to a revised schedule.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because my only concern is if intervener gets an extension, then that should apply to everybody. Everybody's, on the same
That is well
schedule.
understood, Mr. Ewan. Yes. Sorry, were you trying to say something, Mr. Martin? Oh, okay. A written order will be forthcoming on this matter. Is there any further business? Commissioner Giovanni.
Just want to express my appreciation to the petitioner for his reasonableness in dealing with the question of whether intervention by Mr. Martin was acceptable. Thank you, Mr. Ewan.
Okay. Commissioner Cabral.
Yes, I also want to thank the petitioner and actually Mr. Martin also as the intervener. I am not opposed to the intervention in general. I am just concerned that it's so open-ended that it would allow, it appears to me, allow everything that's been brought up and potentially all kinds of new things that have never been discussed. So I'm just concerned about that, the way that appears to me as an non-lawyer. I'm concerned about the structure of that. Thank you.
Is there anything further, commissioners? If not, Commissioner Ohigashi.
Everybody's thanking Bill, so I'll thank him too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks to everyone. I'm grateful that even during the pandemic, we're able to get together and have good and civil conversations about the future of our islands. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Aloha.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
That's right. Happy holidays,
Merry Christmas.
everyone.
No.
Aloha.
Stay healthy.
Aloha.
God bless you all.